Alright everyone, now it's time to talk about the upcoming midterm elections, specifically with regards to the gubernatorial race down in Texas. Beto ORourke likes to play a big game, and every time there's an unofficial, unaggregated poll that shows Beto within striking distance of Gregabbott, all of a sudden, makes the rounds on leftoid Twitter, and they pretend that, I don't know, there's a chance for Beto ORourke, but there's really not. We can now establish, I am predicting that Gregabbott will win the gubernatorial race in Texas. Barring some, act of God situation, Abbott dies or Beto ORourke saves 20 puppies from a fire or something and, gets lots of legacy media fluff coverage for it. Unless something really out there happens, Gregabbott will win. It'll be by more than 5 points. I would say between 5 and 10, so a fairly good win ultimately. The average is 6.8 in the aggregate. You can't really establish that to be the actual final number. We've seen that oftentimes the polls and the final number don't really line up properly, but it's outside of the margin of error. Gregabbott leads by, in my opinion now, an insurmountable amount. We're halfway through August. You don't have that long till the midterms. And clearly, what hasn't worked is Beto's latest strategy. His latest strategy is two-pronged, and the reason why he's failing and flailing is because he's cringe. But here was his strategy. Number one, heavy focus on putting shit out online. So Beto ORourke is making 10 times as many posts as Gregabbott cross-platform. They're sharing pictures and selfies and data, news stories and stuff. There is a more personable approach. This is in the wake of Obama and to an even greater extent Trump. This has become a modern campaign style, but you still have candidates that don't do that as much. Gregabbott is one of them. You think of Cornyn and Romney and some of the other neocons, they have the same problem. Not saying that Gregabbott's a neocon. He's sort of missing link as far as the Republican Party goes. So, he's not dedicated MAGA, but he has no problem with populism and is generally useful. He did a better job than most governors during the lockdown-erist period over the course of several years, so you got to give him some credit for that. That's one part of the campaign, being out there, especially on social media. The other part is self-aggrandizement, so Beto will show up and have a Confederate in the crowd chuckling at dead kids or something like that, and then he'll drop the F-bomb, and supposedly this is impressive. The problem is the people that are cheering for you in such a situation are people that already supported you. They showed up to the Beto rally. No shit, 99% of the people in the crowd were cheering Beto on when he dropped the F-bomb on somebody and said, "It may be funny to you, motherfucker, but it's not to me." And it doesn't even come off right because he's the cringy midlife crisis dad. And that's really his problem. His problem boils down to two things, in my opinion, and this is why he has not made headway. There is no velocity whatsoever in the polling aggregate and hasn't been for the better part of a year. That's how I can establish that Beto is done. He will not win the race. Here's his problem. First is personality. He looks and acts and sounds like the midlife crisis dad. Younger voters especially are not going to like that. The Democrats already have a youth voter problem right now up and down the goddamn ballot, and then Beto ORourke steps in and hoping to salvage his career. The other problem is his past statements. He can moderate his views all he wants on guns or whatever, but he's made past statements that contravene what he supposedly has switched to believing in today. So before it was, damn right we're going to take your guns. Yeah, of course, we're going to come door to door for you fuckers and take your AR-15s. Now it's, hey, no, we just want sensible gun control. And in a state like Texas, of course, that lands with a thud and doesn't do very well as a message, just to be clear. I like it. And it's not just Beto. I like it when politicians try to cite fake statistics, so they say, well, like 70% of this state agrees with me on such and such an issue. And there's like actually no poll to support that, or it's complete like fucking fuzzy math or something like that. Beto does this on guns constantly. He should just shut up about the issue. To be clear, he thought he was going to get a big boost after Uvalde. That was really what this boils down to. Was there a boost? No. The Democrats thought they'd get a big boost after Roe. Did they get a boost? No. It's partially because of their goddamn personality. Their tendency to overstretch, and they do the chuffed up, huffed up, puffed up thing where they try to act big and scary and intimidate others into doing what they want. That may have worked on the neocons in the 2000s or in the 90s. It no longer works because MAGA has taken over the GOP. So who the fuck are you trying to fool? You just make yourself look foolish. That's the whole problem. And Beto is probably case evidence number one of this particular phenomenon. It's the personality, stupid. That and the fact that you're contravening literally everything that you ran on before. I guess the other problem is he's just a loser. He had a House seat in Texas. He had a job. He was a politician. He chose to abandon that in order to launch his near politically fatal presidential run. He was an also-ran who came in 7th or 8th place in a packed field, so not particularly impressive. He was at sub-Kamala levels, to be clear, throughout the entirety of it, even though they tried to astroturf him. You came closest to scraping together your career by almost beating Ted Cruz in a race that saw you raising literally tens of millions of dollars from the DNC due to their obsession with knocking him off, at a time when the Republicans were not doing quite so well politically. During that election, the Republicans were more fractious. They were having a lot of problems. You still couldn't even beat Ted Cruz. High name recognition, not great in-party support at that time. I think Ted Cruz has become stronger, actually, in the last couple of years, in my opinion, politically. He's become, in the future, harder to beat. And probably will seek his Senate seat again, by the way. I'm iffy on whether, even in the absence of Trump, that Ted Cruz would get into a presidential run. It's possible, but I don't know. I don't know that I see the signals there. You almost beat Ted Cruz, even though the Republicans had hemorrhaged support and you were outspending him like 3-1. Now, he's going after Gregabbott. You should have just gone after a House seat or something. Why did you just decide to focus on one of the more stable, well-liked politicians in Texas? It doesn't really make any sense. Why don't you wait and try to knock off Cordine? He's not going to have the will of the Republican Party behind him because he cucked on guns just like you're a cuck on guns. Why don't you wait for that or something? But Beto ORourke is not known for his strategery. He's not known to be very bright. His idea of a good campaign message was, hey, I'm going to skateboard up here on stage a little bit. And he spasms out and he starts flailing his arms around and shrieking like a goddamn televangelist about tearing down the border wall. You notice that he hasn't said that on the campaign trail now that he's running for the gubernatorial slot. He learned his lesson a little bit. No. Now that Joe Biden is finishing up the Trump border wall expansions, I have no problem with the wall. People need to come in legally. It's just like Obama. He's basically a political chameleon, and it's hilarious to see. But yes, officially, Gregabbott will crush Beto ORourke. Between 5 and 10 points, it might be at the upper end of that, I would think, probably a 7 or 8 point gap. And it will end Beto ORourke's career. He will no longer be the midlife crisis dad in a couple of years when he's running for anything else. Although, you can possibly think of a situation in which Beto says, I kinda sorta almost beat both Ted Cruz and Gregabbott in a deep red state. Vote for me for president in 2024. In the absence of Joe Biden, I estimate a 90% chance that Beto ORourke attempts to run again for the presidency. He'll lose. He'll be trying to get the cabinet slot or something like that. I don't think that he entertains any fantasies that he'll actually end up being the president of the United States. Imagine the goofier, slower version of Justin Trudeau. Yeah, that's exactly what the United States is angling for right now. Big boy. Yeah, good one. That's about all. Peace out.